All right. So, someone recently asked a question regarding meditation. So I thought that was a good topic to cover, because when I first got into this, I had ideas about what meditation was, or at least my idea of what meditation wasn't clearly defined, because the experience wasn't there, or you could maybe even say that the practice wasn't there. But I have, or at least I can provide here a model of what meditation is in my experience, that might be a bit more clearly defined. I think my idea of meditation, or the way that I would talk about it, might differ somewhat from other speakers that you would hear who you could class as talking about the direct path. But I'm not sure. It's just basically from what I've heard. But I made a wee post in the community section just asking, I've not read the comments yet, what is meditation to you, and how would you describe it? Because it's interesting, until considering this question, I kind of really didn't think about it all that much. I thought about it when I first got into Buddhism, and meditation was a big part of the material that I was reading about it there. But more recently, I've not considered it that much. But I can give you my experience with it. I think for me there's a big crossover. People will make the distinction between self-inquiry and meditation as being distinct, as being different. But in my experience, the more this awakening thing clarifies, the less personal it becomes, the more complete and more simple it becomes. The distinctions around what meditation is also kind of dissolve, become less clear and less important. Or you could say the meditation as a definition, as a practice, disappears, so to speak, or fades out with the meditator, or the one practicing. I know that the way I've talked about this has changed quite a lot, and I used to talk about meditation a lot more in the beginning. So clearly, at least in the way I speak about it, my idea of what meditation was a big part of this path, or this practice, so to speak. But I don't really talk as much about that anymore, and I think there's a good reason for that. So I would describe meditation as, or now I would describe it as, the directing attention, or manipulating attention, or focus, you could say, in experience into different parts or different aspects of experience. So for example, the attention starts usually with most of it being in the space of thought, most of it being focused on thought from the apparent or the energetically felt subjective position. That creates an internal world, and that internal world, which seems to relate to external reality or my life, absorbs pretty much 90% of the attention, just to put an arbitrary percentage on it. Meditation, to me in hindsight now, was directing the attention into different or expanding or manipulating the attention into different aspects of experience that in order to uncover the assumption, the structure of identity, the illusion of identity as it's being created in thought. So this is where inquiry comes in. So the direction of attention, I would that practice of directing or dilating or manipulating attention, I would say I would class that as meditation, to put a distinction on it. The inquiry would be the questioning, the investigation, the curiosity and intention that leads to the dismantling of these structures of identity in mind and experience. So as the attention seems to move or focus or dilate or expand, to bring into focus areas of this thought experience or this immediate experience that were hidden or were obscured or just weren't investigated before. That is the effect of bringing this up into clarity. And in clarity, when the attention is shining on, so to speak, these assumptions, they lose their power, they lose their assumption, their suggestion of reality, and with that the solidity of this illusory self, this idea of identity, fades away or deconstructs or dissolves. And the more that happens, the less this subject-object assumption, this me relating to my life assumption, the less momentum that has in mind as something real. And with that, the one who's practicing eventually dissolves as well. So then the attention isn't necessarily being directed by an agent, a meditator, a one who's inquiring, and attention begins to naturally move as a function that happens based on conditions, not due to the one in the centre exerting its will on it. So I hope that kind of makes some sense. So for me, meditation, what that refers to, or what I believed it was before, was achieving a state with no thought. And what I found was that whatever practice I engaged in, intentionally, consciously, when I did that as the meditator from this subjective position, it never worked, because I was constantly trying to relate to a thought experience, reinforcing this assumption of the subject, which brought about more unsettled movements of mind, because I was trying to manipulate thought from a position of thought. I was subtly adding thoughts to thought in an attempt to calm the mind. What I did notice, like even way before I got into this, was that engaging in certain activities I really enjoyed because it took me out of mind. The mind didn't have a chance to ruminate and reflect and reinforce that pattern of identity. So for me, my meditation was, even before I knew what meditation was, engaging in physical exercise predominantly, moving physically, grounding myself in the sensory experience. And I really enjoyed that and gravitated to that because it was a form of authentic and not goal-oriented meditation, in that I always recommend this to people, to engage in something that you enjoy just for the simple sake of doing it, such that you could do that all day long and not and get so immersed in it that you forget about time. You could happily do it all day long, not for a goal but just for the sake of pure enjoyment and ideally in the senses. So for me, that was sport and physical activity. There was a grounding effect that came with it that had the indirect benefit for me of moving the attention out of the space of thought and into the physical, immediate sensory experience, which was a powerful practice. That's what I would class as a meditation, in my experience. The problem for me came when I attempted to do meditation as a primary activity, and that didn't change until awakening, until the subject had been the belief and the felt reality in that subject, the thinker in mind, had been seen through, had clarified as not being there, only being the movement of thought, just thinkingness. Until I was able to allow that thinkingness to be what it is, there was always a polarised subject-object resistant relationship going on in that mind. So in a way, this is my experience, other people might be completely different, in a way that I don't feel that I knew what meditation was until awakening, until the meditator relaxed its way out of focus. And in that way, there wasn't a specific direction being pointed about in the thought experience from a specific or vague viewpoint within it. The whole thing, you could say, flattened out, or there wasn't no longer me perceiving thought, there was just thinkingness. And allowing the thinkingness to be as it is, relaxing the view, opening up, expanding the aperture in mind, had the effect of kind of defocusing and neutralising the importance of thought from the point of view of the thinker. So in a sense, we can only direct attention at an object. Someone described in the comments that attention is focused awareness. And that made total sense to me. The awareness inherent, the consciousness, the knowingness, the awakeness, so to speak, focuses itself down into this subject-object dichotomy. And that focus can only be aware of a thing as a thing. It can be aware of this object, that object, by confining through a mental framework awareness to fit into a shape or a size or a box or a form. When that relaxes completely, it just kind of keeps relaxing completely, to be honest, as this deepens, such that the sensory experience comes forth and you're aware of, so to speak, more of that as it is all at once without separation, which is a very intense experience when taken from a point of view. So that's why I think it can be quite comfortable to select an object of meditation and just focus on that one thing, because you can get a kind of fear reaction when we expand out too quickly, and that subjective position is still felt to be real. It doesn't like that because it doesn't know that. It's too much. And like I said, like I explained this before, that after the non-dual nature of the senses clarifies, as this awakening thing simplifies right down, the subject is no longer present in experience. The sense experience is, there was a phase where it was so intense, I realised what this sense experience is and why I was trying to avoid it by taking a position in it apart from it, because it's so alive, so powerfully, vibrantly alive, to the point where it's actually overwhelming from that subjective view, from that sense of self. Can't handle it. It doesn't, me, David, couldn't handle it. It's too powerfully mysterious and intense, scary. I would say the objective of meditation as it relates to awakening is to allow that to be fully as it is without taking a position in it, a position that has to manipulate attention within it so that it can relate to it and know it. As this deepens, experience identity simplifies its way out of having to be there into just what is. But it's incredible the ways in which that thing that wants to experience itself as being here, as existing as something, it's incredible how deeply ingrained that function is, that it seems so inherent, and the mind will move in ways to reinforce that and bring attention back down into a focused view to maintain this assumption, because it's deemed as having to be there to be safe, having to be there to exist at all, and all it knows is existence. Have I derailed this one yet? I think we're alright. So to summarise that, ways in which attention is manipulated, ways in which it's strange. It's kind of like you get limited language. You get outside of that function of directing attention paradoxically it seems like that. Something comes into view, and when that does, the whole thing relaxes, the whole thing expands. There is a kind of misperception built into the idea of meditation in general, which I think can be a limitation because we can identify with that, and it's the idea of a meditator that has to be present in order to engage in the activity of meditation. Whereas meditation can happen on its own. Meditation is only something distinct from a normal state of consciousness. It's not meditation. So, something specific called meditation thought that light was on there. Is what's being engaged in, and that's somehow distinct from normal life, not meditation. So there's a duality built into that, and that duality has to be there to reinforce the position of the meditator, the existence of the me who's doing this. As this deepens, or you could say as meditation loses its definition, then I guess you could say everything becomes a meditation. And I guess I would categorise inquiry as a focused meditation. If I was to not define it apart from meditation, it's an intention with curiosity directed into an area of experience, that being the subject. Which is strange because that's also a relaxation of attention, but we, so to speak, achieve that relaxation by focusing attention. So I've heard Frank Yang talk about this, the expansion and the contraction of attention, and how paradoxically there seems to be a simultaneous expansion and contraction that comes about at a point in this. So, to give an example of what I mean by this, let's begin by we'll do a test to see how we are limiting our perception, or how we are putting limits on experience through perception. And we'll see how far you can get in this, and what happens, and we can kind of inquire into that. So select an object of attention. Let's just do it with eyes open, and we'll select any object, one object that appears in front of you, right? And we'll let the mind be free to recognise that object as what it thinks that is. So in front of me I've got a silver Skoda. So what we're going to do is, with our attention fixed on that object, we're going to expand that attention out the way from the object to include its background, its surroundings. And as we do that, we're going to try and let go of the label of car as being something distinct. So now you could say the car merges into its surroundings, its environment. So that objective label, that distinction, is relaxing. We're going to keep expanding that out and out towards the peripherals. And this will get tricky if the mind might keep trying to recognise objects in this, and the tension might be bouncing about. But we'll relax it out, we'll let go of the labels, we don't need to label objects. Now we're investigating just seeing the scene, and we expand the attention out. If you get distracted into thoughts describing it, bring it back and start again. So we're bringing the attention back to where we started. So we're starting small and we're expanding out. So keep expanding the attention out to encompass multiple objects, but these objects are all going to appear as one object of meditation, which is the scene. Keep expanding out till we start to get to the peripheral. And we can, while simultaneously maintaining attention in the centre of vision, we're also going to become aware of the peripherals, where it starts to lose its definition. And there are kind of vague shapes and colours and forms there. The mind might move to label them as this or that, but we don't need that, because now we're just going to investigate the quality, the substance, fabric of the scene in its totality. So keep expanding it out, keep relaxing the recognitions of the mind in the objective sense. Now our object of meditation is the totality of the scene, the visual sense, the totality of this visual appearance. Now we'll call into question the recognition of myself as an object or a subject looking out at this separate screen, or looking through this window, or looking from this position through space. And we'll expand that back to include the sense of the looker. We're not resisting the sense of the looker, but we're going to allow the visual experience to overtake and engulf the sense of me here looking, so that I merge with it, I become one with it, I relax the distinctions and let it be what it is. Okay, whilst we're doing this, what we'll do is whilst maintaining attention in this, in the vibrant and full nature of the appearance, we'll open ourselves up to the sound. We'll have sound not be distinct from the appearance, but overspilling from the visual appearance into consciousness or awareness, such that it comes from and as this appearance, the sound appears with it. Whilst to do that, we'll call into question the spatial objects of me here, behind me, to the sides, in front, over there. The spatial objects, the map or the labels of this sound and that sound, produced themselves by something distinct, the sound being distinct from the totality of the herd. We're just going to let it all relax into one seamless and homogeneous alive vibration. And again, let the sound overtake or move through the center point of the one hearing it here. As we do that, we will bring attention to what makes it seem in sensation that there is a center point here. So bring attention to the body sense, whilst maintaining the relaxation into and as this homogeneous, buzzing, alive appearance. Of the sound and the scene, appearing together as one. Move attention into the physical sensation, and as we do that, we'll just notice if there's a map here placing a locality, location to this body inside this one homogeneous non-dual sense. We'll trace that center point down to where do you feel a tension or a solidity or a heaviness in the body. Is that more defined and solid than the rest of the sense experience? Or the rest of the sensation? Let the scene move through that center point like it's transparent. Let the herd move through that center point of this physical body here, apart from the world, as if it's transparent. If there's a solidity in there that feels heavy, feels solid, as we allow that non-dual sense appearance to wash through it or shine through it like it's transparent, like a light, we're going to let that sensation touch everything in experience or colour or connect with everything in our experience, including the scene, the herd. And we're going to feel it out there, if there is an out there. We're going to feel it in the appearance of the world. I'm going to have to pause there. Give me a sec. Okay, so I'm going to have to go in a minute, but so with that we're exploring the sense experience, and we're using attention in a way where we're calling into clarity the augmentations, the mental thought-based structures that are seemingly augmented onto the sense experience, to make it seem like this is a separated, defined, distinct outside world with a central me here as an object within it. This can bring up some emotional stuff as well. That's why I was saying about moving the attention to the sensation and finding where the emotional sensation is in the body that is seeming to contract this center point in experience and make it feel solid and real, that we are kind of protecting this identified cluster of sensations from the rest of sense experience. This is the kind of thing that I did with meditation, and it's quite free. You can it doesn't follow rules. Meditation, the attention can move to where it needs to, where there's the most resistance being felt, where there's the most contraction being felt, and then we're relaxing the structures around that are giving it definition, such that that sensation can be freed up into non-dual infinity. Anyway, I'm going to go now, and I'll talk to you next time.